Economic Nationalism Reloaded, the case for tariffs over corporate welfare and wage controls. Part 6 of 7 in a series on Liberation Day. Tariffs are not just taxes, they're not just economics. On Liberation Day, Donald Trump didn't just sign a trade policy, he fired a shot in a war between two systems. One system is built on globalist outsourcing, artificial wages, and central planning. The other is built on national loyalty, natural incentives, and earned prosperity. And for the first time in a generation, the second one is back in the fight. This wasn't about protecting one industry or punishing one country. It was about tearing down the fantasy that American workers need handouts to survive. They don't. They need a level playing field. And when the game isn't rigged, they don't need government pity. They just need a shot. Trump offered that shot through tariffs. For decades, the left has told the American worker that if you're struggling, the answer is a higher minimum wage. Raise it to 15, raise it to 20. They'll keep going until a robot replaces you or your job moves to Vietnam. Then they'll offer you a stimulus check and a retraining program for an industry that doesn't exist. Trump flipped the table. Instead of forcing businesses to pay more by law, he made them compete for American labor by design. Tariffs bring production home, and when the work is here, wages go up automatically. No law, no subsidy, no red tape, just market forces doing what they used to do before globalism broke the system. Raise the minimum wage and companies would cut hours, reduce hiring, or automate. Impose tariffs, and now companies need people, need factories, need workers. And when labor demand goes up, wages follow, without destroying the job market in the process. It's not complicated, it's capitalism with borders. That's the philosophical frame, but let's ground it. If a company's forced to build in your town to avoid a tariff, and the factory across the street is already offering $23 an hour to beat them to the punch, you've just created the real minimum wage, not the artificial one. It didn't take a vote, it didn't take a lobbying campaign, it didn't take a socialist TikTok influencer writing policy memos, it didn't take leftists bitching and moaning about the Senate parliamentarian. It took leverage. And tariffs are leverage. Tariffs are not subsidies. They're not giveaways. They're not welfare for corporations. They are a penalty, but only for the disloyal. You don't get tariffed if you don't offshore. You don't pay if you don't flee. It's the most honest policy in the world. If you choose to manufacture overseas and sell into America, you're going to pay for the privilege. If you build here, you're fine. Tariffs aren't coercion. They're accountability. They don't reward you for existing. They just stop rewarding you for betraying the country that built your consumer base. And this is the part no one talks about. In the long run, tariffs raise wages, not just economically, but morally. When a company onshores production, it doesn't just need workers, it competes for them. Wages climb, benefits improve, training returns, and it doesn't require a single act of Congress to make it happen. No votes, no riders, no carve-outs, just cause and effect. That competition doesn't stop at the plant gates. It floods the surrounding economy, because here's what Steve Ratner won't tell you on MSNBC. Every factory job supports 3 to 5 more jobs. The truck driver, the diner cook, the machine repairman, the accountant, the housing contractor, they all eat from the same plate. When one factory reopens, an entire main street comes back to life. The multiplier isn't theoretical, it's visible. You can hear it in the noise of trucks. You can see it in the help wanted signs. You can feel it in the rent finally getting paid on time. And there's something else, something emotional they never calculate. Tariffs don't just bring jobs back, they bring back identity. Because Made in America isn't just a label, it's a psychological anchor. When you buy something built in your country by people in your town, you're buying more than a product. You're buying trust. You're buying dignity. You're buying the idea that we're still worth making things for. Globalism didn't just flood us with cheap goods. It robbed us of connection to what we build and to who we are. The collapse of manufacturing didn't just kill jobs. It destroyed men, real men, fathers, sons, neighbors, leaders. When work vanished, so did stability, so did order. The factory wasn't just a place to earn, it was a place to grow, to be needed, to be accountable. Globalism destroyed that. It didn't just offshore our economy, it offshored our structure. You want to understand the opioid crisis? Start with the closed plant, start with the empty mill. You want to understand rising suicide rates, broken families, mass depression? Start with a paycheck that vanished and the identity that went with it. Tariffs aren't just economic policy, they're social repair. Here's how it works in the real world. Take a foreign made sneaker. It costs $100 to manufacture and ship. A 10% tariff hits at the port. That makes it $110. By the time the importer adds margin and retail markup, that sneaker is now $115 on the shelf. Now compare it to a US made sneaker. Costs more to produce, say $105, but no tariff. Shorter supply chain, more predictability. On the shelf, still around $115, maybe $112. And congratulations. That tariff didn't raise your cost. It made the American product competitive. Now the company starts building shoes in Ohio instead of outsourcing to Indonesia. Factory opens, jobs come back, paychecks rise, all because of a 10% filter at the border. No bill, no hearing, no executive bailout. Just incentives redirected. Steve Bannon was right about this. He said George Floyd didn't die in a vacuum. He died in a broken economy, no opportunity, no ownership, just drugs, desperation, and counterfeit money. That's not a race issue. That's a manufacturing issue. If Floyd had had a stable union job in a Minnesota plant, if he had been competing in a growing local economy instead of scavenging for scraps, maybe he's alive, maybe he's a homeowner, maybe he's a dad. What part of the movie is this where Steve Bannon, the guy who was portrayed as the Grim Reaper on Saturday Night Live, is the one that has the best, most heartfelt, most emotional, most populist take away from the George Floyd death?
I mean, let's go to Mr. Floyd and I say this all the time about George Floyd, and I don't want to talk about the crime that was committed against him. That's a different topic. But I'll say, let's look at his life, right? When he died, he had CCP virus, he had COVID-19, he was on fentanyl and opioids, right? And he didn't have a great job because all the manufacturing jobs shipped overseas. Think of what George Floyd's life would have been if we had had a manufacturing base. He would be a supervisor or a foreman at a factory or a junior management. He'd be opening up his summer home to go fishing up in the lake country in Minnesota, with his second home up there, a little cabin he could share. If he didn't have the opioids that shipped in by the Chinese Communist Party through the cartels in Mexico across open borders, with everybody making money on the way up and the huge profits on that, to poison him, and no opportunity for a job. And to top it all off, the Chinese Communist Party virus that the elites and the scientific priesthood has basically helped fund and helped do. He had the CCP COVID-19 virus in him. He had the virus in him. He had fentanyl in him. He didn't have access to a great job because all the great manufacturing jobs are shipped off. Look, that's the Greek tragedy to me of George Floyd, is that he was in that position that day. And by the way, let's talk about the fake 20. Well, that's also the CCP, and we know that these foreign entities are putting out this fake money all the time with the opioids to do it. That was what the counterfeit bill was.
Maybe the entire story changes. Bannon's point wasn't emotional. It was structural. Tariffs aren't just a macro policy. They're a foundation for morality. You bring the jobs back, you bring the people back. And for the record, tariffs are not taxes on Americans. That's the lie they fed you for years. They're only a tax if you insist on buying foreign. If you want to buy Chinese junk instead of American-built alternatives, yes, you'll pay more. But if you don't, you're fine. Tariffs are avoidable by you, by the seller, by the manufacturer, by anyone who chooses to operate with loyalty. The only people who suffer from tariffs are the ones who demand to cheat the system while blaming you for not working hard enough. Want to know something funny? The left used to love tariffs. Unions used to beg for them. FDR built industrial policy around them. Bernie Sanders once talked about them like a religion. In fact, Bernie wasn't quiet about it. He railed against NAFTA, CAFTA, PNTR with China, and the WTO for decades, calling them job killers. In 1999, he said, "Since 1973, we have lost over 2 million jobs due to our trade policies. What free trade is about is turning your country into a low-wage haven." In 2016, standing on a debate stage, he reminded voters, "I voted against NAFTA, I voted against CAFTA, I voted against PNTR with China, I voted against the WTO." And in 2018, after Trump started doing what Bernie had only ever talked about, he admitted on MSNBC, "I'm not a fan of Trump, But he's not wrong that we need to deal with countries that exploit American workers. Then Trump actually did it. And suddenly, Bernie pivoted. He started calling tariffs reckless, disruptive, dangerous. Because when it came down to it, he never wanted results. He just wanted the rhetoric. The truth is, the left never cared about the working class. They cared about control.